I've been talking recently about faith crises. You know, those times when doubts and questions seem to overwhelm you, and you're not sure what to believe, or sometimes if you still believe at all. What I hope you've picked up over the past few days is that these faith crises are normal, and in fact, they can ignite a spiritual growth spurt. But there's another element I want to mention before we move on, and it is the question, what does it mean to have faith? Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. One of the things I've noticed when people talk about faith crises is that they either talk about their doubts or else they talk about just not feeling God's presence. Either way, it's an unsettling feeling in one's life. But what if there's another way to look at faith, not as something we have, as much as something that has us? This takes a whole different understanding of what faith is from what we normally think. We tend to think of faith as something we possess. And this is not unreasonable. At a certain point in life, we do have to take a sense of ownership in our faith. Notice the metaphor, ownership. Ownership implies possession. But as with all metaphors, it falls short in certain ways. To take ownership of one's faith really means simply to take some responsibility for one's actions with respect to one's faith. But as I hope every Presbyterian understands, faith does not begin with us. Rather, it is in the first place a gift of God. Paul is emphatic on this point when he says, "For by grace you've been saved by faith, and this," meaning faith, "is not your own doing. It is the gift of God." In the common imagination, faith has become the substitute for works in our salvation, but if we read the New Testament closely, it becomes abundantly clear that even faith itself is a gift of God, not something that we do. This brings up two thoughts I need to consider. First, the nature of gifts. The nature of gifts is that really good gifts have a way of connecting with us where we are and changing us, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. Not all gifts have this kind of impact, of course, but I'll bet that if you look back, you've received a few gifts that may have changed the course of your life. I don't remember what year it was or how old I was, probably in junior high or high school, but I do remember what day it was and where I was. It was on Christmas Day, and I was sitting in my usual place in the living room of my parents' house while we all opened our presents. I guess it was my mom who passed me a small present from under the tree. As I looked at it, I had the feeling that it was probably a book. Boring. And when I opened it, I was not disappointed. Or rather, I was disappointed. It wasn't just a book, but one I thought was really uninspired. It was a gift of my aunt and uncle in Midland, Pat and Joan. The book was a little paperback called The Elements of Style by William Strunk and E.B. White. Now, if you don't know about this book, it's about writing. E.B. White, you may recall, was the author of some classic books like Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little. William Strunk had been White's English professor at Cornell many years before. The Elements of Style was first written, or rather compiled, by Professor Strunk in 1918. In 1959, the publisher commissioned White to revise it several years after Strunk's death. Now, I don't know about you, but as an adolescent, I didn't want books for Christmas, especially books about things as boring as writing. But there it was. And I have to tell you, it has changed my life. I have no idea where that copy of the book is, but I do know this. Over the years, it has become an indispensable part of my identity as a writer. I bought umpteen copies of it, and I've given away umpteen copies. I didn't know it at the time, but that gift changed who I was to become. That's the way it is with good gifts. They change us, alter our future. As a gift, faith is that way. It's not so much something we possess as it is something that possesses us, shapes us, changes us. But there's another thought that occurs to me, one you may be thinking now. That is, if faith is a gift of God, but now I don't really feel it, does that mean faith has abandoned me? Or worse, does it mean God has abandoned me? The answer is no. Your struggle with faith is the evidence of faith itself, evidence that faith still has hold of you, even though you may be in a place where faith seems distant. For faith is like any other relationship, sometimes close, sometimes distant, and sometimes seemingly absent altogether. But the relationship is still there. To struggle with faith, to harbor doubts and questions, is to express an important element of faith. For as I said last week, the opposite of faith isn't doubt. The opposite of faith is indifference. Faith is a gift, and that gift has us more than we have it. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do, this day and in all the days ahead.